It begins with a paradox. How does a nation with a GDP per capita lower than Ghana in the 1950s become the home of Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and one of the most advanced digital societies on Earth? How does a country once described by the World Bank as hopeless transform into a global economic powerhouse in just a single generation? And what hidden forces, political, cultural, and economic, turned South Korea from a war-torn battlefield into a technological giant that now shapes the future of electronics, entertainment, and innovation? This is the story of a nation that refused to accept its fate, a nation that rebuilt itself from ashes, and a nation that turned survival into strategy. To understand South Korea's rise, we must return to a moment of devastation. In 1953, the Korean War ended not with peace, but with an armistice, leaving the peninsula divided, traumatized, and economically shattered. Nearly 80% of South Korea's industrial capacity was destroyed. Millions were displaced. Cities were reduced to rubble. The country had no natural resources, no major industries, and barely enough food to feed its population. The average South Korean earned less than $70 a year. The world saw a broken nation. But inside Korea, something else was forming. A collective determination to rebuild, driven by a culture shaped by centuries of hardship, Confucian discipline, and a deep belief in education. Yet, determination alone doesn't build an economy. The 1950s and early 1960s were marked by political instability, corruption, and economic stagnation. South Korea depended heavily on U.S. aid, which at one point made up more than half of its national budget. But aid was not a strategy. And in 1961, a turning point arrived. A military general named Park Chung-hee seized power in a coup, promising to transform the nation through discipline, industrialization, and long-term planning. His methods were authoritarian, controversial, and often brutal, but his economic vision would reshape the country forever. Park believed that South Korea's survival depended on rapid industrial growth. He launched a series of 5-year economic plans, modeled partly on Japan's post-war strategy. The government directed credit, controlled banks, and selected specific industries to nurture. This was the birth of the chaebol system, family-run conglomerates that would become the engines of the Korean economy. Samsung, Hyundai, LG, SK, they were not yet global brands. They were small trading companies, construction firms, and electronics workshops. But Park saw potential. He offered them loans, tax incentives, and protection from foreign competition. In return, they were expected to deliver exports, jobs, and national prestige. The gamble worked. South Korea began producing textiles, wigs, and cheap consumer goods for global markets. Exports grew from $55 million in 1962 to over $10 billion by 1977. But this was only the beginning. Park pushed the country into heavy industries: steel, shipbuilding, automobiles. Industries that many experts said were impossible for a poor nation to master. Yet South Korea defied expectations. In 1973, the Pohang Iron and Steel Company, POSCO, opened its first mill. It would later become one of the world's most efficient steel producers. Hyundai built its first shipyard in Ulsan, and within a decade became the world's largest shipbuilder. The transformation was astonishing, but it came at a cost. Long working hours, suppressed labor rights, and a government that demanded sacrifice in the name of national progress. Still, the momentum was unstoppable. By the late 1970s, South Korea was no longer a poor agricultural nation. It was an emerging industrial power. But history had another twist waiting. Park Chung-hee was assassinated in 1979, plunging the country into uncertainty. A new military regime took over, sparking protests, resistance, and eventually the Gwangju Uprising. A tragic moment that would become a symbol of the fight for democracy. The 1980s were turbulent, but they also brought economic acceleration. South Korea hosted the 1988 Seoul Olympics, a global debut that showcased a modern, confident nation ready to join the world stage. Yet the real transformation was still ahead. The question now was, could South Korea evolve from a manufacturing economy into a technological powerhouse? Could it move from imitation to innovation, And could it survive the economic storms that were about to shake Asia? The 1990s began with optimism. South Korea's economy was booming, its middle class was expanding, and its companies were becoming global competitors. Samsung entered the semiconductor industry. Hyundai expanded into international markets. LG pushed into consumer electronics. The chaebols were no longer just national champions, they were becoming global brands. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. The chaebol system encouraged rapid expansion, often funded by debt. Companies borrowed heavily, investing in new factories, new technologies, and new markets. As long as the economy grew, the system worked. But when growth slowed, the debt became dangerous. In 1997, the Asian financial crisis hit. Currencies collapsed. Stock markets crashed. Foreign investors fled. South Korea's economy spiraled. The country's foreign reserves dropped to just $3.9 billion, barely enough to sustain a few days of imports. The government turned to the International Monetary Fund for a $58 billion bailout, the largest in IMF history at the time. The crisis was a national humiliation, but it also became a turning point. South Korea responded with painful reforms, restructuring the chaebols, strengthening financial regulations, and opening markets to foreign competition. Many companies collapsed, others merged, but the strongest survived and emerged even more competitive. Samsung made a bold decision. Instead of retreating, it doubled down on technology. It invested heavily in research and development, aiming to dominate semiconductors, displays, and mobile devices. Hyundai restructured its operations, improved quality, and focused on global expansion. LG shifted toward high-value electronics and chemicals. The crisis forced South Korea to evolve from a manufacturing-driven economy to an innovation-driven one. By the early 2000s, the results were clear. South Korea became the world's largest producer of memory chips. Samsung overtook Japanese rivals in electronics. Hyundai and Kia became global automotive players. Broadband internet spread across the country faster than anywhere else on Earth, laying the foundation for a digital revolution. South Korea wasn't just catching up, it was leading. But the transformation wasn't only economic. Democracy strengthened, civil society grew, education became a national obsession. South Korea invested heavily in science, technology, and human capital. The country produced one of the world's most educated populations, with some of the highest rates of university enrollment. This created a workforce capable of driving innovation, entrepreneurship, and technological breakthroughs. Yet success brought new challenges. The pressure on students intensified. The cost of living rose. Inequality widened. The chaebols remained powerful, raising concerns about monopolies and political influence. And the country faced a demographic crisis, one of the world's lowest birth rates, threatening long-term economic stability. Still, South Korea continued to push forward, fueled by a culture that embraced change, competition, and ambition. Then came another global shock, the 2008 financial crisis. But unlike 1997, South Korea was prepared. Its banks were stronger, its companies were more competitive, its technology sector was booming. The country weathered the storm better than most advanced economies. And in the decade that followed, South Korea entered a new era, one defined not just by industry, but by culture. K-pop, K-dramas, Korean cinema, Korean fashion, Korean cuisine, the Korean wave swept across the world. BTS filled stadiums. Parasite won the Oscar for Best Picture. Squid Game became a global phenomenon. This cultural explosion wasn't accidental. It was the result of decades of investment in education, technology, and creative industries. South Korea had become not only an economic powerhouse, but a cultural superpower. But beneath the global success, a deeper question remained. How did a nation with no resources become a leader in technology, entertainment, and innovation? And what lessons does its journey hold for the world? To understand South Korea's rise, we must examine the forces that shaped its economic miracle. The first is education. For centuries, Korean society valued learning, discipline, and academic achievement. After the war, this cultural foundation became a national strategy. Families invested heavily in their children's education. The government built schools, universities, and research institutes. By the 1990s, South Korea had one of the world's highest literacy rates and one of the most skilled workforces. This human capital became the engine of innovation. The second force is industrial policy. Unlike many developing nations, South Korea didn't rely on free market forces alone. The government played an active role, guiding investment, protecting industries, and supporting exports. This approach, known as the developmental state, allowed South Korea to move quickly from light manufacturing to heavy industry to high-tech production. It wasn't always efficient, it wasn't always fair, but it was effective. The third force is the chaebol system. These conglomerates, Samsung, Hyundai, LG, SK, became the pillars of the economy. They had the scale to compete globally, the resources to invest in research, and the ambition to dominate markets. Critics argue that chaebols stifle competition and concentrate power. Supporters say they were essential to South Korea's rise. Both are true. The chaebols helped build the nation, but they also created challenges that South Korea continues to grapple with today. The fourth force is resilience. South Korea faced war, dictatorship, crisis, and global competition. Each time it adapted. Each time it emerged stronger. The 1997 crisis forced innovation. The 2008 crisis strengthened financial discipline. The COVID-19 pandemic showcased Korea's technological readiness. From digital contact tracing to biotech leadership, resilience became part of the national identity. But the story is not only about economics. It is also about culture. South Korea's rise is rooted in a unique blend of tradition and modernity. Confucian values shaped discipline and respect. Rapid industrialization created a culture of hard work and ambition. Globalization opened the country to new ideas, new markets, and new opportunities. The result is a society that embraces technology, creativity, and constant improvement. Yet the future is uncertain. South Korea faces demographic decline, rising inequality, and geopolitical tensions. Its birth rate is the lowest in the world. Its population is aging rapidly. Housing costs are high. Youth unemployment is rising. And the country remains technically at war with North Korea. These challenges threaten long-term growth, but they also create opportunities for reinvention. South Korea is already responding. It is investing in AI, robotics, green energy, and biotechnology. It is promoting startups, innovation hubs, and digital transformation. It is rethinking education, labor markets, and social welfare. The next chapter of Korea's story will be defined not by imitation, but by innovation. Today, South Korea stands as one of the most remarkable success stories in modern history. A nation once devastated by war now leads the world in semiconductors, smartphones, electric batteries, shipbuilding, entertainment, and digital infrastructure. Its companies shape global markets. This culture influences millions. Its technology powers the future. But the true miracle is not the skyscrapers, the factories, or the global brands. The true miracle is the mindset. A belief that progress is possible, that challenges can be overcome, and that the future can be built through discipline, innovation, and collective effort. South Korea's journey offers powerful lessons. It shows that economic miracles are not accidents. They are built through strategy, sacrifice, and resilience. It shows that education is the foundation of progress. It shows that innovation requires both government support and private ambition. And it shows that culture, values, identity, creativity can be as powerful as technology. But the story is not finished. South Korea now faces a new test. Can it reinvent itself once again? Can it solve its demographic crisis? Can it balance the power of the chaebols with the dynamism of startups? Can it maintain growth in a world of geopolitical uncertainty? The answers will shape not only Korea's future, but the future of global technology, culture, and economics. As we look at the skyline of Seoul, the neon lights of Gangnam, the shipyards of Ulsan, the labs of Daejeon, and the studios of K-pop, we see a nation that transformed adversity into opportunity. A nation that turned survival into strategy. A nation that rose from the ashes to become a global giant.
This navigation app is
And
a
so,
lifesaver in this
the
city.
story
My
of
sensor
South
shows the
Korea
soil
is
is
more than
perfect. Wow,
history.
this tablet is so
It is a
fast.
reminder
Right.
that nations can change. Economies can evolve. People can rise. And the future belongs to those who dare to build it. If you want to explore more stories of nations that transformed themselves, economies that defied expectations, and histories that shaped our world, continue this journey with us. The next chapter is waiting.